Hey Jackal! In today's video, I'll show you how to make a modern timer which uses no keyframes, so it'll work with any project. It fades in and out. By default, it's a countdown timer, but just by enabling a checkbox, you can make it into a timer. And to achieve all of that, we'll use expressions. Now let's get digital. So this is how that can look like. So we have the timer text, we have a background behind it, and we have two graphical elements that also spin. And the yellow one also shows how many seconds you have, at least when it comes to 2. When it comes to 1 and 0, it shows 2. So let's go to the media pool, right click, make a new fusion composition. You can give it a name if you want, put it onto a timeline. You can extend it if you want, but you don't have to. And then go simply into the fusion page. So inside the fusion page, what I'll first add is a background node. This will serve as the final composition, and it will also set the project resolution of this composition, and I'll connect it to a merge node. So the background will be connected to the back, like so. Now what I'll do is I'll add a shape 3D node and render node so we can see it, and I will also use a camera, but you don't have to, and I'll show you what the difference is. So I'll select the merge 3D node and display it. In the shape 3D node, I'll use the shape as a cylinder. We can scale it down, and in the transform, we'll rotate it by 90 in the X direction for now. Let's reduce the height. Now we don't see it because the camera is inside, so I'll select the camera and position it outside and scale this down a bit more, so maybe 0.05. I can adjust the height to about this point, and now I'll increase the base subdivisions because this is a little bit jaggedy. And why I also have to increase them, let me use a even lower number, is because we'll be animating the angle end, and the animation would be something like this, which is not good looking. So with the base subdivision of 60, this will always look smooth. And the final step, we need to put a lid on this or a cap, so we'll use the top cap. Now at this point, we're starting at 3 o'clock, and I want to start at noon. So in the transfer node, we'll set the z-axis rotation to 90. So now we have this done. What I'll do next is go to the material and set the alpha to 0.05. We'll see a bit later what this will do, but basically what we want is some transparency. And let me show you what happens if you don't use the camera and just use the shape 3D node. This is the border that we have now, and this is what we have at the moment. So basically I have to scale up the radius so it doesn't look exactly the same. So it just depends how you want to work. You can use the camera 3D node, but you don't have to. But in this case, I'll use the camera. Now to make the animation for the angle, we'll type here equals and put in an expression, and the expression will be this one. So the expression will be 360, this is degrees, so we'll make one full circle, and we'll multiply this by time, which is the current frame, divided by the last frame, in this case 149. So when the time, the last frame, comes to the end, it will be the same as the last frame, which means that this expression will be 1, and that means that we'll have a 360-degree circle. So I'll paste this in, and now we have the animation. Just like that. Next up, I'll add the text. So I'll take the text node and use a merge node, connect it like so. Now to make this template scale with any kind of frame rate that you use, we need to use another expression. And that expression is this one. I will simply copy it. And where do you put it? Well, in this case, I'll just put it into the merge node, and I'll make a new control. I'll call it FPS. This will be a number. I'll put it under the merge page. So I'll have it inside of here, and I'll choose the slider control. I'll simply add it. I'll now right click on the name and choose expression and paste this expression inside, which will give me the frame rate of the timeline, which in this case is 30. And now to get this value, if I put my mouse cursor over it, you can see in the bottom left what you have to type in. So in this case, merge1.fps. And I chose to do it in this way so I don't have to type a lot. So now let's take a look at the text. I have two expressions that we'll be using. This will be the countdown timer, and this one will be the normal timer. And we'll put all of that inside of a different expression that will use some kind of a checkbox. And the idea is, if the checkbox is unchecked, it will be a countdown timer, and if we enable it, it will be a normal timer. And just so you can see how this works, I'll first copy this expression and go to the text node, right click, expression, and put this in. And at the moment it doesn't work because previously I've had this set to a custom tool, number in 1, but now this is set to merge1.fps. So as you can see, this is now a countdown timer. Since the clip is 5 seconds long, it goes from 5 to 0. The seal is rounding up the numbers. If I use floor, this would round them down. So at the moment, as you can see, it starts at 4. And then the 0 lasts for a whole second. So that's why this is a seal. And we can change the color just so we can see it. And change the font to any font that you like. So that is the countdown timer and the count up. And let me just change the name here. And this will be now the normal timer that goes from 0 to 5. In the case of the timer, you could also go with the floor function so that it increases after 1 second has passed. So I'll do just that. I'll use the floor here and the seal for this one. So this is done. What I want to do now is fade the whole animation at the beginning so it's not visible, and also fade it out at the end. To do that, I'll use this expression. It will be similar to the one in the text, and I'll use it combined as is because I don't have to check any checkboxes. I'll simply replace the names of the custom tool ones that I had previously. Now what this expression does, at the beginning it checks if this is a fade in. So if the current frame is less than 15 in my case, 30 divided by 2. So if it is less than that, then this value will slowly increase to 1 when you do the calculation. And then this expression is for fading out. So if the current time, which is about this point, is greater than the remaining to the last frame. And then it will slowly fade out using this expression. Otherwise, if it's somewhere in between, the blend value will be set to 1, so it's always visible. So I'll simply now copy this, go to the merge node, go to the blend, type in equals, put the expression in, and now you'll be able to see the blend values change from 0 to 1 at the beginning, and it will be 1 when I come to frame 15. So frame 15, this is now 1. And at the end, it will start going down. So 149, which is the last frame, minus 15, you get this frame, which is the beginning of the blend out animation. So we now have the base composition done. We can now use any other elements to add to this animation before this merge node, and it will also fade in and out. Now what I can also add is a checkbox to the merge node, so that we can put here the two expressions for the text. So it will know if it needs to count down or just display the normal timer. So I'll make a new edit control. This will also be a number. I'll put it to the merge, and this will be a checkbox control. And this one doesn't have to be animatable, but I have to call it something, so I'll call this one. So if it is not enabled, it will be countdown, and if it is, it will be a timer. Let me add the control, just like that. So I can now enable and disable it. And the name of the control you can see on the bottom left, merge1.countdown_timer. So now in my text logic, I'll replace this with, so now if this equals 0, it will be countdown. If it's enabled, it will be a normal timer. So I can now simply copy this expression to the text. So as you can see, now it's counting down. And if I go to the merge and enable it, now it's counting up. So we have this done. Now all that's left to do is to spice up the background and add some elements. So what I'll actually do, I'll go to the shape, material, and set the color to white. I'll add the background node and change the color of it with the background node. So you can now set it as you want. It is really faded, as you can see, and that is why I'll add a duplicate node to make a bunch more copies, but I'll also set an offset so we get a few steps. And the time offset in this case will have to be the FPS, so merge1.fps, and minus, of course. So equals minus, so negative offset. Now we can increase the opacity a little bit, so we can actually see how this will look like. As you can see, you get steps like this in between, so you can increase the opacity if you want, or the alpha. Maybe we'll use 0.3, and maybe you want to change the border, or don't have it, you can simply increase the height. In the duplicate node, how it will know how many copies we want. Currently this is set to 10. We want as many copies as we have seconds. We'll of course use another expression. So to make the number of copies in the duplicate node, I'll simply use this expression, which takes the total number of frames and divides it by frames per second, which in this case is 150 divided by 30, which gives us 5. So I'll type equals here for the copies, paste the expression in, and we have the total copies. Of course this value is 4 because I'm rounding the number down. If I use ceil, this will round the value up. So it's all up to you what you want. So in this case, I'll just leave it to 5. At this point you can finish it because this is done, but I'll be adding some more elements to this composition. Now you can use the merge node, use multiple of them, and you can then use the template with older versions of DaVinci Resolve, but I'll be using the new node, multi-merge, and this one is available in DaVinci Resolve 18.5 and on. So I can now basically connect multiple inputs to this merge node. I'll use this one in the back, so this will be the back, will go in the back, and everything else will follow in the front. Now I'll be using the shape tools to make these new elements. You can find them in the effects, tools, and shapes. You'll have all of the shape nodes here. If you want to know how to make your own custom toolbar, I have a video on that. So I'll be using the shape stir, the shape ellipse, and as boolean to connect them. And if you display them, this is what you see. What I'll do now is go to the ellipse, uncheck the solid, increase the border width, and in the shape stir, I'll again adjust the points with an expression. And because I've used this approach, the number of points minimum is 2. Now when it comes to the points in the shape stir, you have a couple of options on doing this. You have this option, which will just be available for the countdown timer, meaning that the number of stirs will always decrease even if you have the count up timer. You could combine it, so you also have the check value like it's done in the text, or you can just use the text value, which in this case is text1.styledText, as you can see in the bottom left. So let's do that. Type in equals, go text1.styledText, and it doesn't work. As you can see, you have to type in .value to get the value that is currently in the text node. So whatever the value appears here, this will be the number of points, which is also represented on the left screen. And as I said, the minimum points is 2. Now we need to render this out. It has a special node, shape render, so I'll simply connect it. And now I'll be animating the shapes. And for that I'll use the transfer node, connect it, show it on the left side, and I'll be animating the angle. You have a couple of options on doing this. I'll simply use an expression again. This time I'll be using this expression. So the starting position will be at 45 degrees and then it will spin by 90 degrees. So let's see how that looks like. So it will look something like that. And now to add some shake or a wobble to this animation, I'll use a second transfer node and I'll use a different expression. I've used this one when I used 30 FPS and it looked awesome, but you get a similar kind of results if you use this expression. It uses a sine wave and we use this as the value to input into the sine wave and then we multiply the value by 10 in this case, which basically goes from -10 to 10 degrees. So put the value in. So it starts at 0, it will go to 9.9, something like that, and then it goes back down to -10, as you can see. Now I'll simply add the background node to this, so we can change the color. So now it's black, you can use any color that you want. Now in this background node, I've simply selected the solid color, but what you can also do is select the gradient and choose radial 1. Position the center point into the center. So you have 0.5 and 0.5 because I've done the whole composition in the center, and the outside point can be wherever you want it to be. Then simply change the color to what you like. You'll want to bring the points closer together, maybe like that. Now what I didn't do is scale this shape down to this shape. I can do that in the multi-merge node with the layer selected. Now when it comes to the layers, it only shows the connections that earn the yellow input. So in this case, layer 1 is the green input. So I can scale this down. And now I can add a similar setup as this one. So I can copy it. Instead of a star, I'll use an angon. So shape angon. So maybe I'll use this kind of shape. You will have to play around with the settings. In this case, in the ellipse, I've unchecked the solid, adjusted the border width, and scale it down a little bit. In the angon, you can adjust the sides. In this case, I chose 3. I could also use this one. Check the solid, and I've decreased the border width. And then in the as boolean, I've set it as is. So I've put the angon here and ellipse at the top, and the as boolean is as it was, set to intersect. You can get different results if you use different operations. Now in the transfer node, I'll simply make the spin in the opposite direction, and to do that, I'll change the plus to minus. So now this will spin in the opposite direction as these lines, and I'll leave this expression the same as the one on the top. Add the background node to change the colors and connect it to the multi-merge. Then go to layer 2 and change the scale. We can spin this around a little bit so you can see how this overlaps. You can then always come back to the ellipse and the angon to get smaller shapes if you want to overlap to this shape. And now to scale this down, I have to make it a bit bigger, as you can see. So in this case this overlaps, but in other cases it won't. As you can see in this case, when you have 4 shapes, this doesn't overlap. But if you wanted to have the same kind of shape and the same number of them, you would use this star instead of the angon, and just make it so that the star shows the tips. Now simply change the color, and now this is done. All that we have to do is make it into a template, but what you can also do is check how it looks like in the timeline. And let's take a quick look. Looks good to me. All that we have to do is change the text, and what we can also do in the text node, maybe change the color to white. Go to the shadings tab, go to number 2, which says red outline, enable it, and change the color to something dark, maybe something like this. What you can also do is change the softness by a tiny bit in the X and Y direction. You can do this also by typing in equals, connecting the x to y, so you only need to adjust one value. Maybe I'll do 0.6 and do the same for the text. And this value will also be the same, so 0.6. So now I have a soft edge with an outline, which makes it a bit more readable. Now what I'll also do is I'll change the font to the one that everyone has, which would be Open Sans, and make it bold. One more thing that I didn't add, and I should add, is a blur node, so that it softens all of these shapes up just a little bit. So I'll add a blur node. It's not a lot, but it's noticeable. And we can also add some glow nodes to this. So maybe soft glow. Actually, maybe we'll add the soft glow just to the outside. So maybe just to this one. And we'll decrease the glow size. And maybe also just copy the node and paste it to this one. Now the composition is done. I only have to make this into a template. I won't be showing you how to do that. The only unique thing that I've done is in the merge node I've added custom controls. So the merge node should be the first one that is selected so that we can easily change between the two modes. So I have everything selected. I'll now save this as a group. Go to Fusion, Templates, Edit, because I'll be using it in the edit page. I can put this under the generators or under the titles. Give it a name, save it. You don't have to close this just yet. Go to the edit page, go to effects, type in the name. So I do see it here. I can put this onto the timeline, extend it, and it shows up. If I go to the inspector, I have a bunch of controls, but under the merge, I can flip the counter around. And I have all of the settings that I want inside here, which is not ideal, but it was done quickly. And let's put a video clip beneath it. So now when I've put the clip beneath it, this is a little bit too much because it's starting to hide, but what you would have to do is go to the Shape 3D node, and in the Shape 3D node, I have changed, let's see, Material Alpha to 0.3, so this is too much. So the control is under the Material, so this is the default value 0.3. If I would use 0.05, and now save this as a macro, go back into the edit page, it is showing, so I'll put it on, and now we can actually see what's behind this background. And now let's take a look at the final animation, which looks like this. I think it looks okay, but let me know what you think. And if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, jackals, keep it digital.